banks. Well, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan has unveiled legislation to curb the influence of a group of the Reserve Bank's private shareholders. They stand accused of threatening to undermine the bank's independence and circumventing laws that limit them to holding 10,000 shares. Well, for some reaction to yesterday's announcement, I'm joined now in studio by shareholder Mario Pretorius, while Michael Duerr, also a shareholder, joins us on the line from his home in Schliersee, which is 60 kilometres outside of the German city of Munich. Thanks for coming in, Mario. Thanks for joining us, and Michael, thanks for coming on the line. Mario, I'm going to start with you. Undermining the independence of the central bank, that's quite a strong statement. Is this what private shareholders have been doing?
You know, I think the minister's been badly briefed, whoever briefed him from the Reserve Bank. It's an absolutely ridiculous statement to say that we're either rebels or we're undermining it or we got any other ulterior motives of it. The minister should welcome any input, and so should the Reserve Bank governor, from shareholders that only have the annual report to go on.
Yep.
You can't walk into the Reserve Bank and demand anything, and then at the end of the day, we make suggestions, we'd like to be heard, we could be dismissed, but after hearing, after all, this is a participative democracy, and attempts to curtail the democracy, even of shareholders, should be resisted in principle.
But Mario, it's not just about input. You'd also like to see some benefits. You bought those shares in the Reserve Bank for a purpose. You'd like to see more dividends. So it's not a one-sided story, is it?
You know, the one side we may call greedy shareholders. No, we're shareholders. There's not a shareholder in the world that doesn't expect a return. The interesting thing is, in the midst of time, we are probably the worst victims of inflation in the world. For 89 years, we've been getting the same dividends.
10 cents a share.
Correct. We used to get 10 cents, where it was £1 million what the shareholding of the Reserve Bank, that was the capital it was. When Michael can tell you stories about exactly how big and what the worth was of the shareholding, even in the mid-50s and the 60s, we're saying this is just fair. So when you close your eyes and pay us annually what the governor gets monthly, and you raise a stink about it, I think you're on the wrong side.
Michael, let me bring you in here. What's your purpose for being a shareholder in the Reserve Bank? Surely you could get better investments elsewhere than in the South African Reserve Bank. Why do you want to hold shares in the Reserve Bank?
I mean, my holding in the Reserve Bank shares and also then the family participation was actually due to an anti-nuclear movement which I created in South Africa years ago in 2006. But further on then I saw that there's big problems in corporate governance, and then we have suggested for many years that the Reserve Bank must be brought under public control, either by nationalization or by capital increase, which would give the government a majority shareholding. And then we have inherited the whole situation, not created this mess, and the government and the Reserve Bank should engage constructively with us rather than try to criminalize us, what they do now.
Mario, has there been any constructive engagement with the government or with the Reserve Bank?
Well, my letters to Mr. Mboweni, to Ms. Marcus, to Minister Gordhan has come unanswered. Now we've been castigated because we're taking this to the press. Now nobody's talking to us. In the 3 years that I've been a shareholder, I've not seen a single question taken and answered at the annual general meeting, which is shocking all by itself. I mean, here's the Reserve Bank, and the opening page of the annual general meeting and the annual statement, they say, we take on the King to in its fullest extent, which means you are democratic, you are transparent, you're participative. None of these things happen. So how would I have my questions answered if nobody would take them? So there's been zero participation from the Reserve Bank to us. Maybe I've lost it along the way, but then you must tell me so and show me my errors. I cannot learn. We've been harping on the same questions, some of them important, perhaps less so, but we need to have an answer. But then to label us and you attack the messenger instead of the message, that's anti-democratic.
Michael, you've been in communication with the central bank governor, as far as I understand, the new central bank governor, Jill Marcus, and I know that you had a bit of a tense relationship with the previous central bank governor, and particularly relating to taking your shoes off during a meeting last year.
The thing is that actually Jill Marcus now phoned me finally on Thursday afternoon for half an hour, and we had a longer chat, but we didn't find any common ground. I sent her on Friday a letter which she is supposed to answer by Wednesday this week, and now yesterday morning she sent me her thing that she will thoroughly answer all the questions, but she needs sufficient time, and it's again just a matter of winning time and just leaving us out in the cold. But at the end of the day now, for half a year in office, she didn't take up the phone call, and she knew about all the things. She knew that we, at the end of the day, shareholders moved Mboweni out of the office last year, and that she should have been aware that we have some clout, and she didn't react. Therefore, she doesn't take it serious, or not as much as she needs to. Pravin Gordhan I was told from his PA, wanted to phone me a few times. He never did. I mean, we had a talk with the president in December, but I mean, when the president talks about it with shareholders, about the Reserve Bank, but not the Minister of Finance and the Reserve Bank governor, it takes her 6 months. I mean, I think it's bad communication.
Well, Michael, I mean, you said shareholders do have clout at the Reserve Bank, but do you really have clout? And I should imagine after yesterday's changes, you have even less clout.
That's not really the fact, because actually what I pointed out, and that's actually the background for the whole situation, culminating now, is that I served the papers to the Foreign Affairs Minister, to Economics Minister Rob Davis, and to Gordhan at the beginning of March, that they're in breach with the South African Reserve Bank Act, with the international treaty they signed with more than 20 countries in the 90s, signed by Trevor Manuel, with the bilateral investment treaties, and they have to actually amend the act, and that's actually part of the reaction now, because they're frightened that I got them to the tribunal from the World Bank in Washington in September after a 6-month mediation period, and that's actually why they want to fast-track the whole thing and get it all nailed, and they get themselves into even deeper trouble now.
Well, Mario, of course, the South African Reserve Bank is one of only 9 privately owned reserve banks around the globe. Have you looked at how the other reserve banks treat their shareholders?
Well, I would assume it'd be better, but I haven't looked myself. But here's our situation. Step 1, you belittle the shareholders and don't take their questions. Step 2, you declare R1 billion loss. And step 3, you start fast-tracking and calling from recess to Parliament to change the laws, amending the voting rights on it. Well, something smells to me on that. And why don't you engage with us and answer our questions? We're not trying to change the world. We try to help this country get ahead. None of us have evil intent and never had before. I have much better things to do, running my company and doing other things.
Why do you remain a shareholder then in the Reserve Bank?
The same reason I got one in the first place. I think, and I still do, that the Reserve Bank is the most important entity in this country. Among all of us revolve around it, and it props up not only the banking system, the economy. If things go wrong there, anything could come crashing down. So you would expect the Reserve Bank to be run perfectly and to function correctly. Great was my disillusionment when what I saw in the annual reports, and even greater the fact that they do not want to come and engage with me and answer my questions. So I can only assume there's something bigger behind this, and I hope to heavens that I'm wrong.
Do you think the Reserve Bank is going to lose some of its independence with the moves we saw yesterday? There is an additional board member, so 15 board members. The government will appoint 8 of those, and there's a panel going to oversee the appointments of the other 7. Do you think the Reserve Bank is losing some of its independence here? Well,
in the Constitution it says the Reserve Bank shall be independent without fear of favour. Now suddenly you're changing that as well. So this is against the Constitution, it can be argued on the one side. Secondly, since its inception, a number of the directors have been voted by the shareholders on not on an annual basis, but they have 2- and 3-year terms on it. We've had very little, if any, feedback from the people we put there, because we think it's always been an old boys club. People get nominated by the Reserve Bank themselves. And at the same time, having a panel to scrutinize them can be wonderful. I'm only troubled by the role that the governor is now going to play in the proposed legislation, that she has a deliberative vote, which, as I understand it, says, if I don't like you, you don't come on my board. There goes the independence. I have no problem with the basis of having the Reserve Bank directors being called to a higher standard. I would support that. But neither Michael nor I have ever stood or nominated anybody for the directors. So I cannot see how we're labeled as being these people that conspire against and undermine it. Our proposals are quite in the open. I've made an open letter that's been published in the press. Nobody's ever touched on any of the points I raised and said, you are undermining the bank. I'd like to have them answered so we can carry on and build a better Reserve Bank for all of us.
Michael, what's your next move going to be?
We will actively take part in the public participation process in Parliament. We already called the Standing Committee on Finance with the Secretary that they actually have to involve all the shareholders and get the shareholder list and invite all the shareholders for public participation. And they can't fast-track it like this and make an extraordinary session for parliamentarians, because I think it takes a deeper look into it. And also Pravin Gordhan makes the mistake that he says the government would look closely at the act in the next 3 to 6 months and then iron out any problems. Because, I mean, they only can make one change, you know. They can't make amendments every month. I mean, therefore, I think they make the second step before the first. And then we see what's happening, what they get through with the draft bill. I think they won't get it through anyway, because there will be resistance also from other parties. And then when it's not in line with international law, then we have to take them to international tribunal.